بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى يوم الدين. We were talking about becoming Hussaini. We were talking about reaching Imam Hussain alayhi salam and becoming one of his true followers in these last few nights. We opened up the concept of Bala in Ashura, and we said that Bala, calamity, is the core of Ashura. If you don't understand Bala, you don't begin to understand Ashura. Then we said that we learn from Ashura and the lessons of Imam Hussain alayhi salam to deal with our own Bala, and we gave some of the solutions. Then we talked about grief and true grief for Imam Hussain, and we said this is what the prophets have done before, and that when somebody has true sorrow for Imam Hussain, he also has musibat, and the musibat and calamity of Ashura becomes his calamity. And when somebody observes Bala and observes huzn and sorrow, then he is ready to enter the camp of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. The camp where now he has silm and peace with Imam Hussain and his followers, and he has conflict and he opposes the enemies of Imam Hussain. This is the next stage for us to reach Imam Hussain. This is a more difficult stage. It's easy just to cry, just to feel and understand Bala, but here this is the stage of action, where you put away everything. You put away all your vices, all your things that are holding you back, and you become Hussaini. We said that for us to truly become Hussaini and to enter the camp of Imam Hussain, we need to understand evil. And we talked about how Shaitan, what he does in his army is the army of arrogance and is the army of despair. And that whenever you see this in any culture, in any society, you see arrogance and you see despair, know that it has been coming close, has attached to Shaitan, or that it is farther away from Allah and the rahmat of Allah. Whenever you see societies or people that are closer to humility and closer to hope, know that they are closer to Allah and they are closer to the path of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Because the path of Imam Hussain is the path of humility and hope. When we enter the shrine of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, when we enter the camp of Imam Hussain, it is important for us to detach ourselves, we said, from the enemies of Imam Hussain, from our heart, from our qalb. From our qalb, we truly detest the enemies of Imam Hussain. We don't want to do anything with them. We do true bara'at from them. We're opposing them, not allowing them to come into our hearts whatsoever, because they are the armies of Shaitan. So some might ask, and I'll address this question before we get into what I would like to talk about tonight. Some might ask, then why do we have to, when we read Ziyarat Ashura, why do we explanation? It becomes clear that you curse the enemies of Imam Hussain, a'udhu billah. Why do you curse the enemies of Imam Hussain? You say this, you say that I am detaching myself, my heart. I'm not allowing the evil forces, I'm not allowing dhulamat to enter my heart. Because Shaitan can come in any form, can come in as a human, and you might have a type of feeling for that human, or it might come in as another figure, and you might be able to have a type of liking for that person. So when you do bara'at and you read Ziyarat Ashura, or you do the other ziyarats, you detest yourselves from these evil forces. Because brothers and sisters, these people that have killed Imam Hussain, they have committed the worst crime. One of the worst sins is opposing an infallible Imam. Because when you see an infallible Imam, it's much different than you see him. When you hear about him, when you see him in front of you, and you see the manifestation of Allah's mercy, the manifestation of Allah's power in front of you. What else do you submit and you follow? But those that opposed Imam Hussain, those that saw the nur and light of Imam Hussain and opposed them, they did the worst thing. It basically, Imam Hussain, as how a hujjat and proof does, it brings out what's in them. So what was brought out with these people, and we talked about Shimr, when we said that Shimr was one of those people that worshipped Allah, he memorized the Quran, he went to Hajj maybe 36 times barefooted. He didn't have nur, and he didn't have attachment to the Ahlul Bayt, therefore he became dhulamat. So therefore, from Ziyarat Ashura, we learn to separate ourselves completely from the enemies of Imam Hussain. And that we send curses to them, just how the Quran and many different verses of the Quran, maybe 40 different parts of the Quran has the word lan. Because this is a human emotion. Allah has given us emotions, has given us an emotion of crying, has given us the emotion of being happy, has given us positive emotions and has given us negative emotions. This is natural. Our positive emotions, those that we use to attract, are for the Ahlul Bayt. Those emotions that are inside us that we use to repel are for the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt and for Shaitan and his army. These are emotions that humans have. You can't, when you approach religion, you approach it with all your tools, with all your capabilities. Therefore, Allah has given you these two sides. It's not that necessarily everybody's always happy. You also have cry, you also have negative emotions. Therefore, when you use this to reach Allah, you're using both sides of your spirituality, both sides, say, of emotions. You attach at one side to Imam Hussain alayhi salam and you repel the enemies of Imam Hussain. It's very interesting to know that we aren't the only people that curse the killers of Imam Hussain. Look at Sayyid. Sayyid in Tariq al-Khulafa says, may Allah's lanat or curse be upon the people who killed you, also upon Ibn Ziyad and upon Yazid. He's not a Shia alim. He himself does land on Yazid. To understand this better, sometimes we think that when we say cursing, that means we're allowed to curse anybody. And maybe we can divide humans to three categories. Humans are either all around good, like the infallibles, or there's a mix of good and evil, or they're purely evil. Those that we are instructed to curse are those that are purely evil and there's no hope of Allah's rahmat for them. It is not by us to decide who they are. We learn from our imams who they are and we treat them just like shaitan. And just how the Quran says, take shaitan as your enemy, you take them as your enemy. Right? So you have shaitan that are ins and you have shaitan that are jinn. These are the shaitan of the ins. And you separate yourselves, not allowing any chance for them to come into your heart. You're in reality purifying your heart. And that is why maybe they say a person that does not separate from this darkness has not truly understood light, because inside his heart there still might be darkness. He has to first clean it, remove that darkness, and then allow the light to come in. Please give us salawat. So we're talking about the stage of being at peace, attaching ourselves, aligning ourselves with Imam Hussain, and separating ourselves from the enemies of Imam Hussain, separating ourselves from darkness. In one of the letters that Imam Hussain alayhi salam wrote, he explains his philosophy behind why he uprose. He explains his intentions, and it's very famous, I'm sure you know, to his brother Muhammad ibn Hanafiyyah. When he's leaving, he says this very famous sentence, وَإِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَلَبِ الْإِصْلَاحِ فِي أُمَّةِ جَدِّهِ. I have moved out solely to seek and rectify or reform the affairs of my ummah, of my grandfather. I have come for talab islah. I've come to reform the ummah. That's one goal. 2, أريد أن آمر بالمعروف ونهي عن المنكر وأنهى عن المنكر. I propose, my purpose is to enjoin good and to forbid evil. So number 2, enjoining good, forbidding evil. وأسير بسيرة جدي وأبي علي ibn Abi Talib عليهم السلام. And I can go the path, walk the path of my grandfather, Prophet Muhammad, and my father, Imam Ali, alayhim salam, salawat. So 3 goals: to reform the ummah, to command good, enjoin good, forbid evil, and the third, the way of the noble prophet of Islam. See, brothers and sisters, when you come into the camp of Imam Hussain, you have to understand what Imam Hussain alayhi salam stood for and what his revolution stood for. His revolution is reforming society, changing society, not caring about society and just doing ruku and sujood and fasting. Caring about society, if something is good, if something needs to be reformed, help change it. Don't be a person that doesn't have an effect. Don't be a useless person. Change society. We said this changing society, reforming society is the goal of the prophets. It is the goal of the Sulaha. We read in Surah Al-Jum'ah, هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة. The messengers came, why? So they can recite the verses, they can purify, they can teach the book and also give wisdom. So the prophets came to teach, show the signs of Allah. This is one of the secrets about reforming society. First, show them the signs of God. Show them beauty, they might follow it. Maybe you don't even need to explain anything. Show them the beauty of the Ahlul Bayt. Show them maybe the speech of the Ahlul Bayt. Show them the Quran and verses of the Quran, they will follow it. 2, yuzakihim, tarbiyah, train, purify. This is the way of the prophets. Purify them, instruct them in a way that you're purifying them. And 3rd, teach them. And then last is hikmat, give them hikmat. If somebody has hikmat, for example, he won't question Imam Ali, he is wise. He won't say, why Imam Ali are you doing this in battle? Why are you fighting with this? He has hikmat. So this was one of the first main goals, and this is our goal. As we said, we are aligning ourselves with Imam Hussain, and now that we are Hussaini, we make a stance. We make a stance, we are in the camp of Imam Hussain, we make a stance, and we try to change society, we try to change the world. 2, he says, Amr ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar. We command the good, we enjoy the good, and we forbid the evil. This is a topic that is sometimes difficult for some of the brothers and sisters because of different reasons. When you tell them to command the good, what does command the good mean here? It doesn't necessarily mean to teach them something they don't know. They call that irshad al-jahil. It means taking somebody's hand and guiding them. It means, for example, if you see somebody, if they're doing something they shouldn't, you help them out. But because we say that this religion is the religion that gives you life, we are in reality giving them life. It is, for example, if you saw a car accident, a terrible car accident, and people are injured, and they're bleeding, they need your help. Wouldn't you help them? Wouldn't you do whatever you could to help them? Amr ma'ruf nahi al munkar is the same thing. When you see people are bleeding, they need help. They are depressed, they're in pain, they need nur, they need light. You share this light with them. You take their hands and you guide them. When you see the majalis of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, wherever it is, you tell your friends, you tell those that are interested, tell them to come and maybe they will change. So this is a topic that takes some work because we do command the good, enjoin the good sometimes in the wrong way. Sometimes we don't do it. We should have done it. It is a very delicate situation. It is in some of the narrations, it says that it is like a drop of water, for example, compared to the ocean. When you compare this to the other wajibat, commanding the good and enjoining good is the ocean, and the other ones are compared to like a drop, for example. And in some of the narrations, if we have time, it says this is Sabilul Anbiya. This is the path of the prophets, Minhaj Salaha. It is the way of the good people, the Salihun, the Imams, the Ahlul Bayt. So brothers and sisters, what happens that sometimes we've had this is a sensitive issue, so that's why I'm not going to exactly say what to do. I'm going to give general things about Amr bil Ma'ruf Nahy anil Munkar, because sometimes I'm afraid if I say some things, some people might take it the wrong way. So what we're going to talk about, see how it applies to yourself. The first thing about Amr bil Ma'ruf is that we have to know good. We have to know, sometimes we think we know something or we think it's haram and it's not. You don't have to always tell somebody, this is again generally, brother, Qibla is this way, brother, this way, don't eat this is najis right now. You don't always have to tell them. Have knowledge of Islam first before you tell them. But those things that you are sure of, those things enjoin. 2 is the method. The goal is important. The method is up to you. If it wants to be by speech, you want to help them with speech. If it's by showing them a video, a clip, that method is up to you. But what's important is, in Misbahu Sharia, there's this narration from the Prophet of Islam, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It says, when you do Amr bil Ma'ruf, Rahiman lahum, be kind to them, be merciful to them. Rafiqan bihim, be their friend. One of the speakers, I was hearing one of the stories, they say that once he was in an area in Iran where they were playing music out loud, really loud, and it was an area that it was for camping and nature, and he says, well, let me talk to him, let me see. So he comes, he was a very famous speaker. He didn't have his clothes on, but right when they see him, they say, oh, it's him. He says, okay. Right when he's walking to him, he says, okay, I'll turn it down. He's right. He says, I didn't even have to tell him anything. But he says, let me see your speaker system. How is it making so much noise? I didn't know how you can make so much noise with this speaker system. So he shows it, and then he tells him, for example, it says, Rafiqan lahum, Rafiqan bihim, Rahiman lahum. He tells them, we're in nature. Don't you like to hear the sounds of nature? Don't you like to hear this instead of putting... He tells it in a way that, and he understands, it's okay, it makes sense. Put it in a way that, for example, if he came to say Amr bil Ma'ruf Nahy anil Munkar, how sometimes traditionally it's how we think of it sometimes. That with a cane or something and you have to hit the speakers or something. No, it's not like that. Sometimes Amr bil Ma'ruf Nahy anil Munkar, it is, and we say one of the conditions, it doesn't have an effect, right? If that person hears it, it's not going to have an effect, it's going to have a negative effect. You have to know when not to talk. Sometimes you have to talk, sometimes you have to not talk. Because you're going to be telling them something and it's going to hurt them more. It's going to make them think about religion in a different way. For example, sometimes you keep talking about hijab with somebody and they don't even pray. Maybe you should talk about prayer, salat first, for example. Encourage them with salat first. Then slowly when they salat, they notice that, okay, they have to put on hijab for salat, and they begin to have hijab, for example. These are all examples. It's up to the mu'mineen and believers in whatever manner and method. But let me tell you about Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. There is this person that used to recite poetry for the Ahlul Bayt, Sayyid Ismail Himyari. This person would drink alcohol and would recite for the Ahlul Bayt. So what do you think Imam Sadiq did? What would we do? Don't even recite. What are you, alcoholic? What are you doing? So they talked about him behind his back. He wasn't even there. Imam Sadiq says this, Sayyid Himyari, 1 foot is in the wrong direction, but his other foot is with us. So Sayyid Himyari hears this. He says that Imam Sadiq defended me. When he found out I'm drinking alcohol, he defended me. He loved what Imam Sadiq did so much, he put away alcohol. He says, okay, I'm not going to put that away. So sometimes it's very delicate, and you have to use the right approach to attract people. It's commanding and bringing people towards Islam. It's not repelling them. Sometimes over and over, salat, salat, salat for the kids. It's difficult for them, right? You don't want to ever you have to be, not in a way, I'm saying it has to be very balanced in a way that you care about amr bil ma'ruf nahy anil munkar. You care about separating yourself from bad actions and enjoying good in your family, but not in a way that you have to be very careful that it's done properly. For example, sometimes when we raise our children and you want to tell them something, a lot of times we tell them that thing when we're angry. Right away, we can't deal with it. Right when I'm angry, I scold them and I yell at them. But maybe the correct way to enjoying the good is let him do that maybe a few hours, maybe where I'm with him alone and I'm calm, I talk with him. Then the kid knows that this isn't from the nafs, this isn't from ghadab and anger, this is from the aql. Then the kid understands. He doesn't say, oh, every time my dad gets mad, every time my mom gets mad, they yell at me, right? They tell me what to do. No, whenever they're calm, they tell you what to do too. So these are methods that we can choose ourselves. But rahiman lahum, rafiqan bihim, da'iyan lahum bil lutf, call to them with lutf, wa husn al bayan, with good bayan. In Usul al-Kafi, there's a narration, it's a very scary narration. It talks about the people of the end of time. And it says how cowardly the people of the end of time are. It says in this narration, it is interesting that Marhum al-Khulaini, this is the first narration in the chapter of Amr bil Ma'ruf Nahy Anil Munkar. It says a lot when it's the first narration in a chapter. It says during the end of time, the last era of earth, there will be those people that it talks about them showing off. So I can make it more short. It says that they do not prohibit evil. لا يوجبون أمرا بالمعروف ولا نهيا عن المنكر إلا إذا أمنوا الضرر. Unless they see that it is not harmless, totally harmless for them. True, if it's amr bil ma'ruf nahy anil munkar, if it causes you harm, darar, you can look in the Risala of the books of your Maraja, it says there's cases where you don't have to do it. This as if it's saying they're totally afraid. They're totally afraid of any darar, anything that happens to them. There's such cowards, it says, in the end of time, these people, that if salat and saum, it's interesting, if it were to hurt them, they would stop doing that too. If salat and praying and fasting has darar and it causes us damage, they would stop doing that too. Then it talks about, in this narration, this is from Abi Ja'far alayhi salam, which is Imam Baqir, it says this, إن الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر سبيل الأنبياء ومنهاج الصلحاء فريضة عظيمة. It is a huge wajib. بها تقام الفرائض. The other fara'id, the other wajibat are resting on amr ma'ruf nahy anil munkar. وتأمن المذاهب وتحل المكاسب. Then it's a long narration. I'm not going to read all of it. If you like, you can look at Usul al-Kafi. Then it says this. You must then dislike evil in your hearts, Imam Baqir alayhi salam says. فَانْكِرُوا بِقُلُوبِكُمْ وَالْفِضُوا بِأَلْسِنَتِكُمْ. In your hearts, dislike that bad action. And we said, coming to the camp of Imam Hussain, when you see actions and sins, whatever it is, you begin, as you progress spiritually, you see those actions that are against the commands of Allah, and you start to dislike them more and more. Then it says about the group of Shu'aib, for those that did not do amr ma'ruf nahy anil munkar. It said that 100,000 of them were punished, 40,000 of the good, 60,000 of 40,000 of the good, 60,000 of 40,000 of the evil, 60,000 of the good, more good than evil. And in the narration it says why all of them became, bala happened on them because they stopped doing amr ma'ruf and nahi anil munkar, because they stopped caring for each other. So this is one of the threats, especially in the end of time, that people will begin to neglect this important command of Allah. And this is one of the emotions that we have of Imam Hussain. When you remember him, you said, why did he rise? One of the things you say, to do amr ma'ruf nahi anil munkar. There is this sheikh by the name of Sheikh Muhammad Taqi Bafqi. He lived during the time of Reza Khan. And he was one of the people that helped establish the seminary of Qom. Besides Ayatollah Ha'iri, he was behind, and he said, together, let's go and establish the seminary. Whenever you have any trouble or problems, he would do dua to Imam al-Zaman. They needed 400 Abbas. It was cold. They needed 400 Abbas and clothes that the clerics wear. There it says that he says, okay, I'll go to Jam Karan and do dua. He would do dua, and then the Abbas would somehow come. He was a person that did amr ma'ruf nahi anil munkar. In a little bit before, when we were probably born, maybe 40, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, most of us were born. Reza Khan, his family members come to the shrine of Sayyid Ma'asuma in Qom. They come without hijab. They're coming without hijab. People are afraid. They're afraid to defend the shrine. They're afraid to keep the honor of the shrine. But he comes. He asks them, he says, are you Muslim? If you are Muslim, then why are you dressed like this? This is the shrine of the daughter of the Prophet. If you're not Muslim, then why did you come to visit the shrine of the Ahlul Bayt? So then they were upset. They tell Reza Khan, the Shah of Iran, and he comes back and he begins to hit him and hit him and hit him. And all they say, all he would say was, Ya Sahib al-Zaman, Ya Sahib, because he loved Imam al-Zaman. So we had people in history that for the shrines, for the Ahlul Bayt, for Imam Hussain alayhi salam, they defended them. Sometimes if it says in the books of Amr Ma'ruf Nahy Munkar, true, if it harms you, you don't have to do it. But sometimes there's something more important that if it causes you great harm, you still have to do it. So this is a great test, and you can test the believers. Those that enjoy the good, those that care, are helping each other. Not only are they themselves became Hussaini, they are making other people Hussaini. That is a companion of the 12th Imam. That is a companion that is helping the reappearance of the 12th Imam. They're helping other people come to the camp of Imam Hussain. Some might ask, well, how come it's difficult, Amr Ma'ruf Nahy Munkar? Sometimes it's difficult, I can't do this. Or how come in the mu'mineen, the believers, sometimes they don't do this important wajib? One of the answers is that sometimes we're shy, we're bashful, and that we see sin in front of us, or we know that we can help them out, we know we should take a stance, and we're too shy, we're too bashful. Haya is good, but haya isn't good if it's stopping me from doing my obligation. So we have to be very careful on haya, when I should be shy and shameful, when I should have shame, and when I should put everything aside and take a stance, or say something, for example, or do something. Two, maybe a lot of people don't know how to do it correctly, and they rush and they say, okay, I'm just going to say it. They just get frustrated and they can't stand it, and they just, a lot of times we don't do Amr Ma'ruf Nahy Munkar correctly because we don't know the correct methodology. The third, sometimes we're afraid. We have fear. We have fear of something will happen to us. We said that true, if it's going to cause you, damage in your money, your life might be in danger, it's not wajib. But always know that truth is heavy. When you say haqq and truth, it's heavy. It has a heavy weight on that person. Don't be shy, don't be afraid. Think of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. You're Karbala'i now, you're Hussaini now. Can you be Hussaini and neglect Amr Ma'ruf Nahi Munkar? Can you be Hussaini and just pray and be afraid all the time? Fourth, it is not seen as a virtue. When we talk about this and you see somebody enjoying the good, sometimes it's not a hero. Sometimes you don't like him, right? I remember one of my friends, he saw Ayatollah Tabrizi, Mirza Jawad Tabrizi, in the shrine of Hazrat Masuma, a great marja, when he was alive. He saw a kid that's doing prayers wrong. He got up, big marja, and sometimes they don't know who they are. He just thought he was an old man with a big amama maybe. He's a marja taqleed. He comes and says, if you do salat like this, oh, your salat is batil. Look at me, look at how I'm doing. Start doing ruku, standing up ruku. Do salat like this. So sometimes we don't see it as a virtue. We think when somebody is commanding the good, he should be our hero. He is standing up for the haqq. Sometimes think, why are you saying, just leave them alone, that's their life, don't judge them, don't stay away from them. No, actually this is a wrong concept. As we said, the Qawm of Shu'aib were punished. They were punished for just thinking of themselves. And us in this society, or whatever society we live in, we can't just neglect. True, there are conditions and there are places where you shouldn't say something. There are places, but a lot of times we'll see there are times we could have said something or could have done something. And in the day of judgment, we will regret it. So we said that tonight is the night that we are talking about love of Imam Hussain and being in the camp of Imam Hussain. And being strong. And remember, whenever we say that we can't do something, whenever we have despair, this is shaitan coming. Because Imam Hussain gives you hope. The Ahlul Bayt give you hope. The Ahlul Bayt give you courage. The fact that a very courageous person said this. He said, when you start to fear God, everything else begins to fear you. It was from the narrations, but when you begin to fear God, you don't have any fear when you want to take a stance. And tonight also is the night of Imam Hussain saying farewell to his son Ali Akbar. It is the night of the 8th. And in certain traditions and culture, the 8th is when they remember the great son of Imam Hussain, Ali ibn al-Hussain. So if we can dim the lights, please recite a salawat. What I'm going to read for you, brothers and sisters, is from Kitab Irshad. If you have it in English, it describes what happened on the day of Ashura. It says, each of Imam Hussein's followers continued to go forward and be killed until there only remained with Hussein, peace be upon him, the members of his own house. Everybody was killed, all his companions. Then his son, Ali ibn al-Hussein, peace be upon him, whose mother was Layla, daughter of Abu Murrah, began to advance. He was one of the most handsome men, the narrator says. وَكَانَ مِنْ أَسْبَحِ النَّاسِ وَجْهًا وَلَهُ يَوْمَئِذٍ بِضْعَ عَشَرَ سَنَةٍ. And he was in his teens, say 19, 18. فَشَدَّ عَلَى النَّاسِ. And then Ali ibn al-Hussein began to attack. He would recite this, أنا علي ibn al-Hussein ibn Ali, نحن وبيت الله أولى بالنبي, تالله لا يحكم فينا ابن الدعي, أضرب بالسيف أحامي عن أبي, ضرب غلام هاشمي قريشي. Says that I am Ali ibn al-Hussein ibn Ali, by the house of Allah. We are those rightfully endowed with the Prophet, endowed to the Prophet. By Allah, the son of a spurious son will not judge us. I will strike with any sword in defense of my father. I will strike the blow of a Hashemi Qurayshi. And this is when Imam Hussain alayhi salam, when Ali ibn Hussain, what breaks the heart of Imam Hussain, and what some of the scholars say, when you go to the shrine of Imam Hussain, don't recite the musibat of Ali ibn al-Hussain, they say. This is the son of Imam Hussain. They asked him to recite. He says, I will recite as long as you take the Dhari and shrine somewhere else. I will recite Ali ibn al-Hussain's musibat. Because this is one of the great musibats of Imam Hussain, losing his beautiful son, the most similar to the Prophet in looks and in behavior. Imagine Imam Hussain is telling Ali ibn Hussain, all of the companions have been killed, covered in dirt, covered in blood. It is the last hour of Imam Hussain. His time has come. It is the time of Jihadul Akbar of Imam Hussain. What do we mean by Jihadul Akbar? It means the hardest strife. It means tearing and separating Imam Hussain from Ali Akbar. This is his Jihad Akbar. So I ask you, brothers and sisters, I'm going to say this, and you repeat with me. Ali, 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 farewell. Ali, Ali, farewell. It is the last hour of Imam Hussain. His time has come. It is the Jihad Akbar of Imam Hussain. Ali, 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 farewell. Say it. Ali, 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 farewell. Ali, 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 farewell. Ali, 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 farewell. It is the time of farewell. It is the time Imam Hussain separates from the light that he has raised. From the tears of Imam Hussain, it is apparent when he has let you go, Ali, what Imam Hussain has bared. Ali, 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 farewell. Ali, 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 farewell. Ali, 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 farewell. Imam Hussain is saying now, the champion, look at my son, the champion that is battling thirsty in the middle of the oceans of the enemy. From every side, showers, blades, and arrows. My heart has become irban irba for you, Ali. My heart has become cut into pieces. Tired, he says, as if he says, my heart bleeding. I twist inside myself right now. I die for you, my son. My support, my patience. Zainab, where are you? Ali, 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 farewell. Ali, 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 farewell. Ali, 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 farewell. They say they came, the narrator says he came and they struck Ali ibn al-Hussain and stabbed him. He was struck down and the enemy fell upon him, cutting him with their swords. فَجَاءَ الْحُسَيْنِ حَتَّى وَقَفَ عَلَيْهِ. And Imam Hussain came to his son. فَقَالَ قَتَلَ اللَّهُ قَوْمًا قَتَلُوكَ يَا بُنَيَّ. May Allah kill the people who have killed you. How foolhardy they were against the merciful, and in violating the sacredness of the family of the apostle. May Allah bless him and his family. ثُمَّ قَالَ عَلَى الدُّنْيَا بَعْدَكَ الْعَفَا. His eyes were filled with tears, Imam Hussain. there will only be dust in the world after you. وخرجت زينب أخت الحسين مسرعة تنادي. Zainab, the sister of Imam Hussain, came in hurrying, crying, Ya ukhta, he says, Wabna ukhayya, my brother, my nephew, she says. وجاءت حتى أكبت عليه. She came and threw herself on the dead nephew. Al-Hussein raised her head and then led her back to the tent. He told his young sons, carry him back. فقالوا احملوا أخاكم فحملوه حتى وضعوا بين يدي القسطاط الذي كانوا يقاتلون أمامه. And the Bani Hashim were called to bring the body of Ali Akbar to the tent. The ulama say, how come Imam Hussain called the Bani Hashim? Because they say Ali Akbar could not be taken one person. He was cut into pieces. So the Bani Hashim had to bring him back. وصلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله وصلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله وصلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله.